Ladies and gentlemen, we are here live on a Monday night to talk about, I don't know, maybe one of the best movies that we reviewed so far this year. It hasn't been a lot of good movies we reviewed so far this year, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. I'm joined here tonight by my cast of regulars who are here once again. Our good buddy Rob Model, who's I can only assume is being attacked by a pile of clothes behind him right now. How you doing, Rob?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I'm just in the midst of well, my lease isn't up for another couple months, but yeah, my apartment's giant, giant
Yes.
hellhole. So yeah, no, I watched like 16 movies over the weekend, and I think this one that we're reviewing is probably the best one. So a lot of movies like always, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed my trip to the theater this past weekend.
Believe it or not, this might not be the best movie that I saw this weekend, but we'll get into that here in a second. Joining us right below me is our good buddy Rick Aragon. How you doing today, Ricky?
I'm doing great, and trying to enjoy life here.
And joining us on a Monday, who I guess just sort of weasel his way onto the show somehow, our good buddy Orange Hat Reviews, who's joining us here to talk about some John Wick. How you doing tonight on Monday?
Oh, I'm loving it. I mean, the Wick movies currently are my new franchise. Not my favorite franchise altogether, but my favorite new franchise.
We're going to talk a little bit about the John Wick franchise before we talk about the film, because I want to spend a little bit more time going about basically the future direction of this entire franchise, whether that's a good new thing or a bad thing. But before we get started here, let's introduce some of our guys who are here joining us early tonight. And the Duke is here on the Monday night. Listen to us talk about movies. Doba Fett is also here. And then keep in mind, for the first time ever on this 32 episodes of the Monday Night Movie Club, we're actually live on Rumble tonight as well. So the link to our Rumble description is there in the chat. So we're all live on YouTube, Twitch, and on Rumble all together. So hopefully we can get this thing going. I know our last show, the Ballroom last week on Rumble, did almost like 700 views or something like that. So I don't know, it looks like it's doing good numbers there. So we're gonna start streaming a little bit more on Rumble now that everyone's going there. But I wanted to talk to you guys because obviously we do watch movies in between, the weeks. Not like John Wick was the only movie that we watched this week. I have a little movie that I wanted to talk about too, but I know, Rob, you watched quite a bit this weekend. What film do you think had the biggest impact on you this weekend? It could be either a new one or an old one. What are you looking at?
Yeah, no. So I actually saw the Werner Herzog version of Bad Lieutenant, which came out in 2009 with Nicolas Cage and Eva Mendes. It was okay. Nicolas Cage apparently snorted baby powder when he was like, acting as if he was on cocaine or, and he does a lot of deplorable shit in this movie. Like he literally cuts off the oxygen supply of an old lady who's, he's threatening the caregiver. So he cut off the oxygen supply of the old lady she's taking care of. So she'll give up her grandson. And so there's just a lot of like fucked up shit that happens. It's I prefer the Harvey Keitel version personally, but I think if you're a fan of Nicolas Cage and his sort of like crazy over the top acting performances, it's definitely a movie to check out. And then, I kind of watched stuff here and there, crappy westerns, just not much that made an impact. But
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely check out Bad Lieutenant, Port of New Orleans if you get the chance.
What about you, Rick? Did you see anything this weekend that interested you outside of our feature film?
Yeah, well, the only other movie that I saw was Body Heat with Kathleen Turner and William Hurt. It had been on my DVR for a long time, and I'm starting to clear it out. It was really impressive. It's a noir, a color noir, updated. Maybe a little longer than I thought it should be, but on the whole, it kept my interest. And definitely Kathleen Turner at the time was a perfect femme fatale. I mean, she was absolutely sensational as the alluring woman who lures this dim-witted man. Yeah, but yeah, I could see the comparisons to Double Indemnity and The Postman Rings Twice, so it certainly drew from it. And I was thinking, John Barry, he's so we need to remember his scores. He made such perfect music in all films. The 1976 King Kong, excellent music. Out of Africa, as terrible as that movie is, the music is wonderful. Dances with Wolves, and now Body Heat. I mean, the man could score, and I think he's also the man who scored a few James Bond films. But it's a shame that he's not as well remembered as someone like a John Williams or Franz Waxman, Max Steiner, because he did incredible work.
Well, and I'll say this: I really love Body Heat. I saw it a couple years ago. I thought it was a perfect sort of updating of sort of Double Indemnity, The Postman or Rings Twice. But because they made a lot of they did a lot of the remake of the noir in the 80s. I suppose because they thought they could they could actually add sex scenes, where they couldn't do that in the past. And I think very few of them really match up well to their 1940s, 1950s counterparts. But Body Heat is one of them that I really enjoy. I think it gets the location right, it gets the setting and the atmosphere right. William Hurt is great. Rest in peace, by the way. He passed away last year. It's a little embarrassing because I used to confuse Kathleen Turner and Faye Dunaway. And knowing how it's like, I don't know why I did that, because one started their career like 15 years before the other did. So,
but no, I could see that. I mean, I noted that Kathleen Turner is playing the part that Faye Dunaway would have played if this had been made earlier. And they're both very alluring women, cold women. I mean, maybe because Faye Dunaway was in Chinatown, which is also a noir-like film, that's how you could get them mixed up. But one thing that I loved about that movie is how there's a scene where she puts out the cigarette, the camera moves down, and it's a perfect excuse to show her legs. And you think it is a little reminiscent of how you see Lana Turner in Postman Rings Twice, where you see the legs, but then just move up. In this case, you move the camera down, and there's a logic to it. The dialogue is great. It was very alluring. The score is sultry, and it matches perfectly with the heat. I mean, it's a great noir film, and it should be better known. And Kathleen Turner, kind of a humble brag. I did meet her once. She was very nice, spoke Spanish very well, but you just were advised not to touch her because she has some sort of illness that makes touching that kind of gives you some kind of physical pain. So I just had to kind of pose like
Or she
this.
doesn't want to touch people.
But she,
yeah.
she was no, she was really nice, and she was a very great actress. I mean, you could hear how she could voice Jessica Rabbit because she kind of has that 40s vibe. She would have been a great femme fatale of the 40s had she been around at the time. But that's about that and John Wick Chapter 4 are the only movies I saw this week or this weekend.
All right. Well, Orange, do you have anything that you wanted to let's share with the class here today as far as movies for the last week?
Well, I watched uh, a couple movies that seem to have fallen under the radar a lot because honestly, people just stopped paying attention to Universal Soldier. I found that there are two movies that they did in the early 2010s, Universal Soldier Regeneration and Day of Reckoning, where they brought back Van Damme. I mean, they did the whole failed sequels that were straight to DVD with that wasn't with Van Damme, but these two films I actually do believe are a decent continuation of the story, but they are clearly straight to DVD because they're so low budget from John Hyams. The last one, they went totally nuts with the idea of cloning. I mean, the first one they introduced cloning, or Regeneration they introduced cloning, and then Day of Reckoning it was just all about cloning.
Does anyone
And
remember? Just real quick, does anyone remember Universal Soldier: The Return, the one that came out? I
yeah,
want to say
that
like
one,
1999 with Bill Goldberg and Michael Jai White.
it
I
was
vaguely
fucking
remember that
terrible.
one because Goldberg was in it, and I was
Yeah,
watching
Yeah,
wrestling at the time.
it was fucking terrible.
Now,
But
$35 million budget. It only made $10 million. Box
Oh.
is
office.
yeah,
the first Universal Soldier, was that with Raul Julia, and that was his last film, or am I thinking of something else?
no, that was Street Fighter.
Street Fighter. Okay,
Raul
okay.
Julia did Street Fighter before he died.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, then I also watched John Wick 4, but I also watched a couple other movies, specifically one that I'm going to be discussing tomorrow during my mystery review live stream. I watched The Green Knight for the first time over the last weekend. Not the
The
weekend that just
A24
passed, but the
film.
weekend. Yeah,
That was
the
the one that came out
A24 film.
last couple years, right?
Yeah,
With
Yeah.
Patel.
The 2021 film, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, this film is just fucking confusing as hell. I mean,
It's a
don't get me
very,
wrong.
very
There were
pretentious
great parts.
film.
Yeah, there were great parts that I liked. I mean, Alicia Vikander did great job with the two roles that she had, and also they did something that I completely did not expect. But I also did like. There's a certain appreciation that I have for practical effects, and the way they handled the Green Knight with the makeup and how they mixed the proper sound with his movements, making it sound like crackling wood and trees when he merely moved, was actually pure genius. I mean, the giant scene, I'm like, why was this even in the film? I mean, what were you guys just looking for a tit shot on big old giants that were bald ladies? I mean, was this a tribute to Sinead O'Connor? It didn't make much sense to me, but overall, I thought the movie was pretty decent. However, it's one that I wouldn't say is rewatch worthy unless you're going to watch it like a couple of years later.
Yeah, I found it a little overrated. Too many people were really just going crazy for it. Though I actually thought the cinematography was very good, and
Oh
I
yeah,
like
cinematography was very good.
yeah, and I like the score, but I think too many people were really praising it far too much. It wasn't
The
terrible.
score was confusing as hell because the score was mostly it wasn't a traditional score. It was more like sound effects to be a score. And I'm like, this is really kind of taking me out of this film for the most part. But one of the most beautiful things that they did do with the movie was when he runs away from the night, which spoilers, this is a vision that they have, or that he has, not a word is spoken in that entire scene of when he returns to Camelot when you see him finally pull the sash off. Not a single word is spoken. And I'm like, this is actually very good storytelling because this is expressing in a way that something is amiss here, which was actually very well done. Now, I'm willing to bet that the people who did this film were somehow connected with Prometheus because you got a few actors and actresses from Prometheus in that movie. The one that played Arthur and Guinevere were in Prometheus as two of the people that were brought in by Wayland to do all sorts of science shit. And it's like, no.
Well, they have something in common. I found them both disappointing. I mean, The Green Knight, I don't know, it felt like a Robert Eggers movie. You know, it felt like The Northman last year. You know, it's like, yeah, there's some nice artistic flourishes here and there, but I largely felt like both of those movies were sort of not unapproachable, but like they were kind of cold and calloused on the outside and hard to kind of get into.
Yes.
And attach yourself to. So, you know, but they have their fans. I mean, certainly there's a lot of people who like both of those movies.
Yeah, I
Well,
was just going to say this just real quick. This might sound like an unpopular opinion, but I actually did kind of like the Green Knight better than I like the Norseman, and I didn't particularly like either movie that well. I think the Green Knight was a little bit more concise and a little bit more easier to follow, even though it wasn't that it was hard to follow, that there was so much happening. It was just there was a lot of logical gaps in the storytelling that I think hurt that film. Where the Norseman, it's like 5 minutes in, you're kind of like, okay, like what the hell exactly is this movie? Like, what are we doing here? So
well,
Back to
also
Lion King. You know?
yeah,
the Green Knight, you only understand certain things in it if you have read the story itself. Because it's like, who the fuck is this blind chick in the house of or in that lord's house? What the heck is with Winifred? And I just don't get all this shit. It's like, what the frig is going on with a lot of these things? You know?
I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things that's very, very hard. Like I said, I think the word that I use for it a lot is kind of pretentious, even when it pretends not to be, because you always get those movies every couple of years. Or a few times each year that it tries to be far more, at least it comes off as far more intelligent and awe-inspiring than it actually is. Like, I think me and Rob talked about this a few weeks ago. Annihilation is definitely one of those films. Arrival, to me, is another one of those films that I just absolutely despise. As people try to, it was like one of those films where people pretend like they got it so they can feel like that they were smarter than they actually are, but in reality it was just stupid and dry and very, very empty of a film. So yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I got from those movies right there. So
Yeah, I mean, you had Alex Garland, who did Annihilation, had another one last year called Men, which was another one of these just like, again, I know it's a harsh term, but it is like a creative abortion. It's like you're trying to like, it's this pretentious sort of art movie that sort of is talking about a subject but never clearly states what it's about. And by the way, the guy who did Arrival, Denis Villeneuve, I mean, he did Enemy. Have you guys seen Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal? That fucking movie, seriously, watch that movie sometime. I thought that was ridiculously pretentious. So, it's whatever. I mean, and some people think it's brilliant. Some people think it's one of the best movies of the last decade. But I just could not get into that movie whatsoever.
no, it's just not worth it for the long run. But I tell you what, this is the film that I watched this weekend, and it was a film that I probably should have watched a couple of weeks back, but I had a little tie up with a screener. I did have an early screener for the film Nefarious. Now I'm not sure if any of you guys saw any trailers for this one, for the films we've been watching over the last few weeks, but Nefarious, from what I had saw previously on the trailer for it, is that it seemed like another cookie cutter horror film. You know what I mean? It's like one of those movies where it's like, oh, it's about a demon, and then he does like crazy things, and it's like that's kind of like the setup for it, right? And we've seen this so many times with like the Blumhouse movies and all of the Conjuring films that I really didn't think much like of it. It was just kind of like another film to me. But I did finally get around to seeing it this weekend, and all I can say is that based on what I saw on the trailer and what the movie actually was, it definitely took me off guard because it wasn't what I was expecting at all. I think I have the post here. Do you guys know Steve Dees from the Blaze TV podcast show? Do you guys know or have heard of him? Well, like I said, he has a popular show on Blaze TV, and apparently he's like one of the producers of this movie, which I didn't know beforehand. But his company is the one that's producing the film, and it turns out that this film really isn't much of a horror movie as it is a psychological thriller. Because simply the premise of this movie is that you have an inmate who's on death row after committing a horrible murder. That's all we're told beforehand. And you have a psychiatrist who shows up to determine whether this guy is mentally fit for execution, right? Whether he'll be put to death or he'll just be in jail for the rest of his life. So the guy, the prisoner here, claims that he's a demon. And he specifically called for this for the psychiatrist because he says that by the end of the meeting here between me and you, you're going to be responsible for the death of 3 people, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? So it's literally most of the film is like those two sitting in a room together having this conversation, and it turns into like this whole thing about kind of like morality when it first turns into it. But then when the plot starts revealing itself and you start to understand exactly what's going on, and you start to understand, oh, okay, so these are the 3 people that are bound to die, and the order that they're bound to die. It's like this story was much better planned out than I expected going into it. I wasn't really expecting this kind of like a character study in like this bottle film. I just thought this was going to be like a throwaway horror film that, I'll probably give it like a 3 out of 5, something like that. This is actually pretty damn good. I wouldn't say that it's quite a Christian movie because I think that by selling it as that, you're going to catch a lot of Christian off guard, because when we think of Christian movies, we always think of something that's lighthearted and upbringing and kind of like almost beyond, almost parody like on this kind of this uplifting message of everything's great and just believe in Jesus, stuff like this. This one really challenges like morality. It challenges your views on sin. It challenges pretty much like your whole worldview, and in a lot of ways, and it does it from a very clever way where it's not just oh well, Romans 2:16 says this or anything like that. It's like it really challenges on, okay, this is what you believe and this is the consequences, and you go into it, it's like, wow, I was not expecting like this kind of writing, especially from the duo here. I believe is responsible for a lot of the God's Not Dead movies. So I'm pretty sure you guys know about the God's Not Dead movies. I think the only one that I saw that I liked was the second one. All the other ones have pretty much just been like. So, like I said, I think what they did here with this one is that they completely changed their approach of how they viewed like religious themes and biblical things. It's like, let's not just rehash the same thing that we've done all over and over again. Let's actually get a competent premise, a competent plot, get 2 actors who know how to sell their roles like in the story, and they actually made a pretty solid film. I just posted the review up on Bounding in the Comics. You can check it out there. It's an 8. It's an 8 out of 10 because about Bounding I have to go out of 10, but it's a 4 out of 5 for me in my normal scale. And I have to say, it's probably the best movie I've seen so far this year. Now, keep in mind, it's only we're about to get to the end of March, so we still got a long ways to go. But from all the films that I've seen so far, this is the first one that I think truly impressed me. The only one that was Plane. Obviously, I give big praise to Plane earlier this year. But yeah, so from what I've seen so far, those are my top 2 movies of the year. I just want to say that when this does come out, I believe it officially comes out in 2 weeks on the 14th. Definitely check it out and tell me what you guys think of it. But yeah, it gets pretty high praise for me, just in case you guys haven't seen it yet. So.
Well, I've seen I think the first 3 God's Dead films, and actually
I think there only is 3.
Well, are they making a 4th one?
They might be making a 4th one, but I don't think it's been released yet.
Oh,
so.
Well, out of this, I think the first one is the only one that I like. I hated the second one, and I didn't like the third one either.
Yeah, I think the third one is by far the worst out of the 3.
Well, that's the one. That's the one where we find out that Jesus was a social justice warrior.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Sounds
That
great,
will not
yes.
get me to watch those movies at all.
Yeah, that's what they were. That's what they were trying to communicate. I'm not sure why, but there it is.
The way that I figure, I mean, if you're doing paranormal movies or movies with demonic entities and stuff, I'll watch them, just not at night. Because, well, strange things happen in this house.
I want to see that new Evil Dead movie. I heard like rave reviews from critics when they showed it a couple weeks ago, and I know it's coming out in April. So that's the one I'm looking forward to in terms of horror movies. But I'll watch anything. I'll check this out. What's it called?
Nefarious. It comes out in 2 weeks. I believe the 14th is when it officially releases. So yeah, thanks to the guys over at the place for giving me an early screener for that film. So yeah, check that one out in 2 weeks when it comes out in theaters officially. And yeah, I think the only other big news about the week is I got into a big argument about this last Saturday night, but I don't know. Maybe we'll have to discuss this on the barroom tomorrow. But we all know that Shazam flopped miserably, right? Like it does terrible numbers. It's not even going to make $100 million at the worldwide box, which is insane for 80. Not even just like a superhero movie, but it feels like they're all Warner Brothers movies should at least hit that plateau, right? I mean, you think even Don't Worry, Darling had a better box office performance than this one, which says a lot. I mean, that's pretty bad. But the narrative here that I'm getting for a lot of people who seem to be not so big of fans of Snyder here is that this whole thing is The Rock's fault. And a lot of people are throwing The Rock under the bus for the performance of Shazam because they're blaming him, saying that, well, if he didn't want to try to, I guess, center the whole Snyderverse around himself and Henry Cavill, that, you know, that Shazam wouldn't have flopped in the way that it did, which I'm just kind of like think to myself, how exactly does that make any sense? People are even going as far as blaming The Rock for the reason why Henry Cavill thought that he was coming back to Warner Brothers, even though Warner Brothers is now trying to say, well, we never told Henry Cavill he was coming back. You know, he just made that post all by himself. So you try to tell me that The Rock convinced Henry Cavill to tell people on Instagram that he was coming back to play Superman, but not because The Rock was, I guess, went rogue and tried to create his own universe behind people's backs. It seems to me like this is what the whole hiccup has been, is that The Rock wanted him and Henry Cavill to be big features with the superhero universe in DC moving forward. And instead of going through the stooges at Warner Brothers, who was going to kayfabe to David Zaslav that, you know, yeah, well, you know, he wants to do this, but we want to do things our own way. Rock went over their heads to talk to David Zaslav directly and see if he can get a deal done. And that pissed off a lot of the executives at Warner Brothers. It's like, how dare The Rock go over our heads to do his own thing. That seems to be what this whole thing is about. I think a lot of people who are not fans of Zack Snyder are also latching on to this, trying to blame him because they want the whole Snyder thing to die, and James Gunn taking over and doing his own thing is a good news for them because that means they don't have to acknowledge the Snyderverse anymore. But what do you think about this narrative out there that The Rock is to blame for the downfall of the DCEU now?
Well, here's what I don't understand about this: is like, are Snyderverse fans? Did they really think there was a future? Like, you know, they didn't want to release his vision for the Justice League. They basically did it as like a shrug. You know what I mean? Like, they've always been at odds with the people who like the work Zack Snyder's done. But like the idea that he was ever gonna be like reinstated or be put back in charge of the DCEU is a fucking pipe dream. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I'm one of those people who like Zack Snyder's work for the most part. I mean, some of the stuff is flawed and has issues, but I think for the overarching vision for the Justice League, I think he was really headed in the right direction. And I think it's a shame that they didn't give him his due and his opportunity to bring it to life, you know, to see it through. But that ship has sailed. You know what I mean? Like, that's too late. So kind of like blaming, presupposing the Snyderverse and then blaming The Rock for that. It's like, no, he's trying to do was cement himself in the DC universe going forward, and it didn't work. You know, they kind of, even with Black Adam, which was much more successful than Shazam 2 was, you know, it didn't make enough money to generate that kind of interest.
Honestly, the way that I see it, and this is a person I am a fan of the Snyder trilogy, Man of Steel, BVS Ultimate Edition, and the Zack Snyder version of Justice League. I liked it for what it was. It was dark, it was gritty, it was grounded to a certain point, and I like where Zack Snyder was not afraid to let his heroes cut loose. Fucking Wonder Woman was straight up smashing people's heads against walls and blood just gouting, man, which is pretty damn. Yeah. It's like, all right. But I also recognize that when DC's like, fine, Christ, just release your fucking movie. Here's some money. Just do it. And it's like, look, you guys got to realize this is being released during the pandemic. It's not going to make a lot of money. And this is coming from me, a person who was also a fan of Snyder's work. But this movie they're not going to let him finish. As much as I would like to see the continued universe that Zack Snyder had in mind,
Yeah.
not the crap that we've been getting, but what Snyder had in mind, which was a lot darker version of Aquaman 1 and a much more less comedic version of Shazam. I would have loved to have seen those. I mean, The Rock is actually credited in the first Shazam movie. They actually have him in the credits, in the cast of the credits, where it's like, but where was he? But then they showed, Black Adam laying waste to Kahndaq or whatever it was. But do I think that The Rock is to blame for this? He made a power move. Yes. He went over some executives' heads. Yes. But he is not responsible for the death of the Snyderverse. Or DC is responsible, and Warner Brothers is responsible for the death of the Snyderverse. They said, you're going to finish your job or your movie the way, or your Snyder cut. We're not continuing it, though. Despite what the fans think, we don't give a fuck about the fans. When are people going to fucking realize that? They don't give a shit about us, folks. And it's time for, as much as I am part of the Snyder, or released the Snyder cut and them, I was part of that movement. Yes, I was. I wanted to see it. But I'm also a person who subscribes to reality. It's a pipe dream to think that they're going to let Zack Snyder do it. It would be the smartest decision, because that is what the fans want, and you want asses in seats. You want the box office to go up, but it ain't going to happen.
Go ahead.
Well, Shazam was just bad. Shazam 2 was just bad. And if other people, especially someone like Zachary Levi, wants to make The Rock or Dwayne Johnson the scapegoat for the movie failing, it's kind of a stretch. I mean, maybe he wasn't as cooperative, and it would have been nice if he had made the cameo that Levi says and insists that he was going to make, but then pulled out of. That might have been a nice touch, but nobody would have known about that cameo until the movie was released, or unless it would have leaked out. But no, I mean, there were other factors. There were other factors that sunk this movie. There's this perfect family film that has a suicide in it. I mean, I can't get over that. That's just one thing that I keep bringing up.
Whoa, that's fucking dark.
Yeah. Well, granted, she was the guy that killed himself was under the goddess's spell.
Yeah.
So, but still, I mean, I saw
He
that
goes splattered away.
That's why,
Yeah.
Rick, every time you say it's a suicide, I'm like, hey, if you're not killing yourself, it's not suicide. She's literally making you do it. Then literally, it's just another form of murder. But
well,
I don't. Yeah, I never understood.
Proxy, how about that?
We can make an argument for that. Well, we'll agree on this. A character walks off the roof of a building.
Yeah.
And
he got yeeted off the building.
Yeah.
And
that is that's not what I would constitute a perfect family film. But be that the case, it's easy to just blame someone else than say that, and it's almost taken an air of desperation when I see those videos from Zachary Levi, someone who I generally do like, almost kind of say that somehow he had he was not responsible, and it might be true. I mean, he's an actor; he played the part that he was given, he played the part as he was directed to, so we can't hold him solely and exclusively responsible.
But why is he making these videos in the first place? To me, it's just like he's shooting himself in the foot by making these videos in the first place.
Maybe because subconsciously he doesn't want to get blamed for this film's failure, because he is the face of Shazam, and I think this is something that he's wanted to do. But I think that's my theory as to why he's doing these videos. but it's like don't blame Dwayne Johnson. I mean, he's going to single handedly rescue Fast 10, right? So
Okay, can I just need to share this. I need to share this with you guys because I was sitting in the previews waiting for John Wick 4 to start, and the newest
The
trailer for
cringy,
Fast 10 came
yeah.
out. Okay, I need to explain this though. First of all, Vin Diesel is driving a muscle car and there are helicopters chasing him, and he literally drags both helicopters down with his fucking car, making them crash and explode. And it was just the most absurd bullshit I've ever seen. It was a movie trailer, and my roommate is laughing her ass off saying, "You have to take me to see this. It's so bad."
Did you not see the last
Yeah,
film
they-
where?
No,
They went into
listen,
outer
I haven't seen one since Tokyo Drift. Okay,
Oh, God.
I'm so far behind.
Rob, you've
The
missed so
Tarzan
much.
swing from the last one was enough for me. I'm like, oh my god, this
Rob,
fucking film is
you've
ridiculous.
missed so much foolishness in the last few years with these
Yeah.
movies. There's one point where I believe Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez is driving on a bridge that is already snapped, by the way. And then
Yeah, that's the Tarzan swing.
Oh,
That's the fucking Tarzan swing.
no, remember it was Tarzan Sweet, but then they were also driving on a bridge that had already snapped and had no traction whatsoever, but they were still driving above it. Like, yeah. Not to mention in the last film they sent Ludacris and Tyrese into space, so there's
yes,
also that. as
there's
well.
like a Camaro
Using the
that goes
Tokyo
into
Drift crew.
outer space. Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see like Lucas.
I mean,
Black.
holy shit, did that kid not age well?
Yeah, he looked far older. He's supposed to be like barely 40 or 42, somewhere like that, and he looked.
Also, during
much
the
older.
trailer, Vin Diesel's voice is like, I forget what he said. It used to be about respect, and literally, like, the next shot is of girls like dancing, booties dancing. Like, my roommate just went, now it's all about the booty, and it's just like, but that's how shallow and stupid these movies are. And I haven't seen one since 2006. I think that's when Tokyo Drift came out.
Well, Tokyo Drift actually takes place later in the films now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's the
Sean-
other thing. That screwed up ass timeline they have now.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The kid that plays in Tokyo Drift, when you see him in the timeline,
Lucas
compared to Lucas Black, compared to what he looked like in Fast 9, it's like, dude, you're barely out of fucking high school, and you look like you aged 40 fucking years.
Well, that's what happens when you're investigating crimes in New Orleans. I said in my review that he looked far older than he actually is. He
Looked like he had a bad case of dysentery.
he looked way
He
older
looked
than his
drawn.
I think he was 40. Yeah, I think he's supposed to be like 40 in real life. But he
Looked like he lost so much freaking weight. Like he had just gotten out of the hospital from mass dehydration.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a large part, but I guess you had to include him because he's part of the story. Yeah, look, I've been very forgiving of the Fast and Furious franchise.
So
I kind of enjoy the silliness and over the top nature. But I mean, first Hobbs and Shaw was already bad enough. But when they went into outer space, the whole theater was just laughing. And all I kept thinking is, wouldn't the car have been crushed by the pressure of space immediately? How do they breathe? It's not like they can roll down the window and just get air. I mean, they would have died instantly. But there it is. And they could even drive the car to crash into the satellite up in space. They could literally maneuver the car to crash into the satellite. You know, I love the suspension of disbelief, but this is too much. But again, with Fast 10, I will go to see it because I've seen all of them. I actually have the box set. And I still want to see Rita Moreno and Dame Helen Mirren do a drag race. That, for me, is the only reason. I will stay until the end credits to see if they actually put that in. I want to see that 91-year-old and that like 80-some-odd-year-old go at, race each other. That will be the perfect ending. And there's even one more, because now we're going to get
because this is technically a part 1 of the final series. So Fast X is going to be part 1, then there's going to be one final Fast and Furious movie either next year or the year after. So,
and to bring in the franchise killer herself, Brie Larson.
Yep.
Yeah, she's also part of a family.
Oh, we
How
haven't
many?
even
How many?
started on the review yet, Zero. So you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, we're fucking 40 minutes in, and we haven't even started discussing Wick yet.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Not my fault for once.
Well, I
No,
tell you
that's how
what.
it usually
You
goes.
want it to be your fault?
Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was gonna say that's how it usually goes. We usually try to
Yeah.
kill, half hour to 45 minutes. Even
Yeah.
if it's just about like NFL or sports news or. But
All right, I think we should actually go ahead and start on the review because there's a conversation I want to have about the future of John Wick, but I think it's better we save that for the end of after our review here and just go ahead and get into the movie. So,
Should we recap
obviously,
first, though?
I was
Should
just
we
about to
recap?
get into that because
Yeah.
obviously the only person who hadn't seen any prior John Wick movies up to this point is the man below me around here. If you watch the show long enough, it's no surprise whatsoever. This man refused to watch all the Halloween movies.
No, not refuse. That's not fair.
No, you refused because you had like 9 days before the film
I'm not gonna
review
watch
came out.
all of those movies in such a short period of time. I didn't
You
refuse.
could have.
No, I'm not Rob. I can't watch so many movies over the course of a weekend. I can barely get two down.
Yeah, that's some excuses right
That's what
there.
she
For all I
said.
heard. But yeah, so this guy over here didn't watch a single John Wick movie up to this point. So let me kind of give you just the too long didn't read version of how we got to this point here. First John Wick movie was a movie about a retired serial killer who someone broke into his house.
Assassin, not a serial killer.
Assassin.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's just a fancy
What the
title.
fuck, man?
He was-
Assassin is just something you put on your 1040. That's all it is. It's only
he's the Citizen Kane. He's the Citizen Kane of hitmen. Okay.
whatever.
No,
Well,
man. He's the freaking. Well, never mind. Keep going, Jake.
so someone broke into his house and shot his dog, and then he was out for revenge, right? Then that leads us to the second John Wick movie where, now he just wants to be left alone, but he can't be left alone because people are trying to reel him back in. So he tries to shoot his way out and just to say he shoots the wrong person and all hell breaks loose. So then the third movie is basically where he's fighting pretty much every assassin on planet Earth trying to stay alive. And then at the very end of the third movie, he gets shot off of a building, a New York City building, by the way, and somehow manages to survive and vows revenge against the people who wronged him again. So that leads us here to John Wick 4, where John Wick is just out for vengeance. That's the best way we can describe it.
Civis pacem parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. That was the whole point of the third movie.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is that war. It's a war that it's like you fucked with the wrong fucking dude.
Yeah.
He wanted out. You should have just fucking left him alone. But yes, he fucked up by getting back. It's like he said in the movie, and even a shout out in this movie. You dip so much of as a pinky back into this pond, something is going to reach up and pull you back in. And that is exactly what happens. And it's like this movie is the culmination. It's like, you want a fucking war? I will bring a war so fucking deadly to your damn, that it will make the fucking high table fear me. And he fucking does it. He doesn't want the high table to fear him, but he will, or he's not averse to killing the entire fucking table.
it's great, as I'm sure Rick will, give his opinion here, but you don't even need all of that for this movie to be effective. I think that's what's great is and there's, we'll get into it, but there's a lot of things like that where it's like, there's so many things in this movie that the MCU and that intellectual property movies, whoever, can take notes on and be like, hey, this is how you effectively do that. This is how you actually have characters that genuinely are humorous instead of forcing jokes. Hey, so there's so many things like that throughout the movie that are like, oh, hey, this is actually a breath of fresh air as a form of entertainment, as just a way of giving back to the audiences and saying, hey, we care that you're entertained.
Well, I mean,
And
real quick is that I wanted to spell the idea. I did have some idea of what was going on because of the pre-show that the Alamo Draft House uh, shows before the film. So I didn't go in completely blind. But there were things, just real quick, things that I got without having a lot of background. And I like some of the nice nods to other films, but we'll talk about that during the course of it.
I mean, one of the things that can be said about all the Wick movies, every single one of them, is that these movies were done in such a way that merely talking about something or mentioning something, you understand the significance behind it. Maybe not the full context, but that there is great significance behind it. This fucking nobody is John Wick. It's like, okay, you understand that this guy who just fucking assaulted his son, beat the shit out of his son because his son fucked with the wrong person. This has to be somebody that you don't want to piss him off. And that the way that this movie does explanative storytelling, all of them, and visual storytelling in such a way that it draws you in and leaves you wanting more.
Yep. So, Rick, let me ask you a question here. So, when
Okay.
we get to the very opening of this film, and it's John Wick preparing for war, and he's on a horse in the Middle East shooting at other Arabs, what was your estimation of what was happening at that very moment?
All right. Well, first, I like the Lawrence of Arabia shout out there. That
Hmm.
that impressed me right from the get go, and my sense is that he was pursuing the Arab that gotten him to cut his ring finger off, because like I said, the pre-show explained some things and explained what happened in three, where he goes and he contacts, was it the elder of the high table, this
The one
Arab.
who sits above the table.
Yes, and he has to kill Winston. So I wasn't, again, I didn't go in completely blind, despite not having seen any of them, because the pre-show did explain a good amount of things. So when he's out there in the desert on a horse with no name, I figured that's what he was aiming at, to go and pursue. The elder, or the sheikh, as I kept calling him. But no, I was
The
just
Saudi
impressed
prince.
with, I was just impressed with, was it when Winston blows out the match and then you cut to the sun. I'm going, I've never seen, at least I don't remember, an action film that quotes Lawrence of Arabia or any of these great epic films, and does it pretty well. I mean, the cut is not as perfect as it is in Lawrence of Arabia, but the fact that they included it shows that these people who were behind this film actually like film, or actually know enough about film to throw in something like that. That probably a lot of people who, I don't want to say a lot of people, but people who have not seen Lawrence of Arabia, and I don't know what the crossover is between John Wick and Lawrence of Arabia fans, I don't think a lot of them would have gotten it. But
There's a
it
lot of
trust,
shout outs in this movie to different movies.
yeah, there. But the fact that they trusted the viewer with that, and then the scene at the Louvre, that to me showed a level of intelligence that they should be commended for. So
Well, there
yes, I
were
knew he
there
was
were
pursuing that.
many cinematic sequences where I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" And what I love is, yeah, it's almost a 3-hour runtime, but they took the time to kind of show you that they cared about what they were making. They cared about how it looked and made sure the shots were symmetrical. And there one hint of shaky cam handheld camera work here?
No,
No.
No,
So it's
this
just
movie
like
was very
no.
steady.
like a technical competence on that level, and in this kind of action movie, that's phenomenal. Like stuff for me personally, that's like, that's worth the price of admission on by itself. I'm a
This,
film nerd that way, but I absolutely love that.
but with
I
this
mean,
film, what's great is that there was, like you said, there was no shaking cam, so it understood something that a lot of these action films don't. you have to see the whole sequence, the whole shot, the whole body shot. This is going to be a strange comparison, but it's similar to what Fred Astaire would say about when you show dancing on film. You have to see the whole body to appreciate it. If you see it clearly, if you see the action like at the Berlin Club, if you see it clearly, even with the flourishes of the lights and the waterfall, but if you see the whole action scene clearly, you appreciate it. It slowed down when it needed to. It didn't speed up, but I mean it just kept things flowing. And I know we'll talk about this later, but that overhead shot, that's
Oh my
real.
God, that's
That's
Oh
fantastic.
yes, the
that's
sky view.
bravura filmmaking. But
Yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
Well,
Sir.
this is what we were saying here. It was like, and this is why this movie is doing so well right now, because this is one of the few film franchises, if not the only film franchise, that really truly cares about what the audience is expecting and what the audience wants when they go into the theater. It's like they're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. They know what people are going in for. So their way is to keep our core audience satisfied and think of new ways we can keep them entertained, because this is the fourth movie. And one of my biggest complaints going after the third movie was like, okay, after the third movie, I felt like you guys have to find some kind of way to wrap this up, because we're reaching the point now where this is going to start getting repetitive, where it's going to lose its luster very quickly if we just go down the road of, well, we'll just have John Wick kill 230 people in each movie, and then we'll move on to the next movie where he does the same thing. It's like, you guys got to hit the finish line here. But the movie here starts off, like we said, he's in the desert. He goes to the elder, who is the one above the table, and he basically says, the elder tells him that, look, it doesn't matter if you kill me, you're never going to get back your freedom. So it's like, okay, well, there's no reason for me to keep you alive then. So he shoots the elder, and that obviously sets up a firestorm with the table. They go back to New York.
Yeah, the table fucking freaked out.
Yeah, so they go back to New York, and they're saying that, yeah, your hotel's basically being shut down. You have an hour to evacuate everyone, or else we're blowing this whole thing up.
The Harbinger.
Oh yeah. So Lance Reddick,
you gotta give the you gotta give the lore, Bob. You gotta explain certain things.
Well, 1 second here. So Lance Reddick, who tragically passed away like a week or two before this movie came out. I think it was like literally the week before this movie came out. A little bit of a spoiler alert here. He basically gets killed off in like the first 10-20 minutes of the movie, right? He basically shot him dead and removed him from the film. Now, obviously, there's no way of knowing that the dude was going to die in real life a week before this movie came out. So you can't say, I know Daily Beast came out there and said, oh, you guys did him so wrong. It's like, look, the movie was well in the can before he died. So it's like, there's literally nothing they could have done at that point. It's like I said, there was no way they knew that he was going to tragically pass away.
And to push back on that, his death is a main plot point. It's a main plot point in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they paid disservice to his character, not at all. So that article was completely out of line.
My question,
fucking full of shit all the time anyway.
No, but my question would be, whom did they expect? Did they really think that they were going to kill off Winston? I think for this movie he would be far too integral, and he was in the trailer more. So it would have made less sense. So obviously they're going to go for the secondary character, and it's unfortunate that Lance Reddick died before the movie was released. But it's an unfortunate coincidence. It wasn't pre-planned.
I mean, believe me, when I saw him shot, I'm like, oh fuck, and I'm like, because I already was. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, people are going to be fucking freaking out. I mean, everything is going to be fucking going nuts, and somebody's going to pull something stupid.
No, that's curious.
Daily Mail did.
There were people in the theater who didn't know, because they had put up like a brief tribute to Lance Reddick before the movie started, and somebody in the theater said, "Oh, I didn't know he died." So
the fuck?
Yeah. Surprise.
I mean, one of the things I do like with the Harbinger coming in, and it's like, did he also get out and have to come back in with the missing finger? That's the one thing I am curious about. How did he lose his finger? But also him basically saying, this building is condemned. It's like, okay, I understand deconsecrated, but condemned? They're going to fucking blow up a fucking building in the middle of New York City.
And they had the explosives set up within 1 hour. Within 1 hour, they had the whole thing just blown up.
I'm guessing that the high table has all of their Continentals wired. I'm guessing that they have them all wired just in case that
Fail
eventuality
safe.
happens. But I also love what the Marquis tells him right after the building blows. You're no longer New York,
See,
which
and
is a
this is
callback to the
also
third movie because that's what he tells the adjudicator. And we are New York City.
one of those things where I just at some point let go because it's just movie logic, and because you have
Yeah.
to, or I'll go insane.
Yeah,
The
you got to
amount
have
of
a
things
suspense.
that
You got to have a level
you know,
of suspension of disbelief.
yeah. So, but,
And it's
But
like,
I get it.
So,
But
but here's
yeah.
my big complaint about that, and we'll get onto it here. So, the big bad guy in this film is Bill Skarsgård, who I like to call him as French asshole. That's pretty much what he plays in the movie.
the French authority.
Yeah, big French a-hole. Every time they show him early on, it's like he's supposed to be like this high-ranking member of the table, and they always have him surrounded by like this like religious like imagery behind him. It's like he's standing in this big room, like he's supposed to be what's the best way to say it? He's the head of the table, essentially. That's the way that they're portraying him as.
The table gave him or gave
Unilateral.
him full.
Yeah.
They gave him full
Hmm.
control. Something Imperator. I couldn't remember what it was called.
So obviously, after the Elder is dead, all eyes are on John Wick. So anyone who is viewed as an ally to John Wick basically has a bullet on their chest right now. And then, like I said, they blow up the New York scene, and then they go all the way to Japan because it finds out it's the Japan hotel that he's being sheltered in at the moment by his own buddy. But of course, they know exactly where he is. They show up there with guys with guns and full armor suits and whatnot. And the objective here is we need to kill John Wick and get rid of him once and for all. Now, here's my problem with this whole thing. This is the fourth movie. This isn't the first. This isn't the second. This is the fourth movie. How many guys are we going to send at this point to kill John Wick before we realize, hey, look, either one, maybe we should just stay home because maybe the money isn't worth it because this guy has killed like at least a couple thousand people in the course of these four feature film series. And two, at the very least, if you're going to continue to try to kill this guy, maybe change up your strategy a little bit. I don't know, maybe get some sniper rifles, maybe get some RPGs because clearly the whole let's run and shoot him and stab him plan does not work.
Well, the thing is, Winston, or not Winston, but Marcus from the first movie, which was played by Willem Dafoe, he was a sniper. He could have taken Wick out, but he had loyalty to Wick. Now, one of the things about this universe is, yes, the contracts, if they're open, they're not compulsory. However, when it's an excommunicado, apparently, the contracts are compulsory. Or, in this case, the Marquis, the French asshole, he actually basically said, if you're not taking part in this, you're going to be seen as a friend of Wick. If you do not take part in this fight to kill Wick, you're with Wick. So this is, or your participants is mandatory. How many times
which
is John Wick served a drink in these movies? Just poison him, right?
I mean,
well,
it'd be more creative than anything else they've tried up to this point.
It brings to mind Rasputin. You know, so we've got that Russian.
Jesus Christ, that dude would not fucking die.
Exactly. They shot him. They
Stabbed him.
drugged him.
Robbed or shot, stabbed, hung, castrated, disemboweled.
And drugged him, and then they threw him into the river, and he still was he drowned. So basically, he was still alive, fighting for his life when he was already thrown into the the Neva. So he's kind of like that. I mean, he's someone who will not die, and of course, what motivates them isn't just, I'm assuming, not just the money, but it's the glory. You know, to be the one to say, I took down Baba Yaga. So of course, that appeals to their ego.
Right.
So
Now, Rick, did you understand at a certain part of this movie when the firefights start that that the guys in the movie have what's called bulletproof suits, which is why they were always shielding their
Yep.
face with the suits.
They were-
Did you
I,
get that?
I put that. I saw that too, and I was like, okay, what the fuck is going on here?
I got
I
I
mean,
only
these
saw it
suits
for the-
have gotten so
beginning
fucking
part.
more sophisticated since the second
got
movie.
the sense of that. I got the sense. I was puzzled as to why he kept covering himself with that, but then eventually it kind of dawned on me that it might be some sort of protector.
I want to point something out too, in that because that first because the beginning of the movie to that Japanese hotel, the end of that's like I want to say that's at least an hour. It might be an hour and a half of runtime. It's a chunk.
Yeah.
And like one complaint is that part it does take some time to get through to the rest of the movie. However, I will say that how they ended that first act, I thought was really good with the sword fight between the two assassins.
Cody and Kane, yeah.
Kind of reminded me of Kill Bill a little bit.
It did.
And I will say, and that's both positive and negative, but because it was kind of going on long, I was like, okay. But I will say, there was not enough blood. Like, and maybe that had to do with the bulletproof suits the dudes are wearing.
Yeah.
Like all the stab wounds, I was like, "Where's the blood at? Where's all the blood from the gunshots and stuff?" So some of that was a miss. Maybe there was a reason for it. That went over my head.
Where's the kaboom?
They had to tone it down to a degree because they were I believe they did risk an NC-17.
Jeez.
Where's
And I will
the
say this:
earth
the weakest
shattering
part of the whole
kaboom?
movie, is Bill Skarsgård and his awful French accent. I had to it took me half the movie to figure out what the fuck accent he was even doing, and it was like, oh, it's French. And okay,
It was French
Well,
douchebag accent.
Actually, I didn't mind because I kind of felt that he was kind of a slightly camp villain. So I rolled with it.
No. Scott Adkins, who comes in later, that's
That's a
like
fucking
hammy,
campy villain.
right?
Yeah.
That's a campy, hammy performance. That's awesome.
Shot me in the ass.
Yeah, I got that too.
Like,
But
oh my
for some reason,
fucking God, man, they went there.
I was more forgiving of Bill Skarsgård in
But see,
this.
this is no other movie is getting these reactions. You know what I mean? Like, even if things that have come out this year have been moderately entertaining, this for 2.5 to 3 hours, this was an absolute blast. And every time that it started to lag, it found a way to re-engage, and I'm talking for myself here, but re-engage the audience with the story.
Well, again, coming into this cold, the various battle sequences, and that's what they were. Battle sequences were filmed almost beautifully. I mean, they were filmed very, I don't want to say balletic, but they were quite impressive visually. The Osaka sequence, the Berlin club sequence, all that. I kept wondering, like, if I see someone throw an axe and land right in your head.
Oh my God, dude!
I am not going to stay in the club.
club.
I'm not going to stay in the club, no matter how good the music is. I'm going to run away.
Yeah.
The axe and the nunchuck scenes were probably my favorite because they were the most brutal and just the most shocking. So yeah,
I mean,
they were
all of those-
fantastic.
And I kept when they
And by the way, just real quick, Keanu Reeves said he did like 90% of the stunts in this movie by himself.
Yeah.
So
he
Did
did, yeah.
Did you notice, by the way, that Keanu Reeves was moving slower, and then they kind of worked that in the whole kind of, and when he gets kidnapped or whatever, he's like they kind of are making fun of him for it. So I thought I noticed that where he did most of the stunts on this movie, and he is, I don't know if they wrote that in or he's noticeably slower in those movements, but I thought that it was something that they brought out.
Well, him also being slower is a good way of maintaining continuity from the third film. This dude fucking got shot off a freaking roof of a building, smashing almost every freaking guardrail on the way down from the fire escape, and then smashing into a dumpster at the bottom. And even after a few weeks of recovery, you're still going to be quite tender.
If there's one thing that the last two movies proved is that John Wick is very immune to fall damage because he falls off a lot of shit throughout the course of this last two
apparently
movies.
he isn't because he's slower in this film. Maybe all that freaking damage he's taken throughout the last three films is starting to take its toll.
Or
One-
maybe the
one would
suit is not
imagine.
only just bulletproof, but it's fall proof as well. I mean, he can also get hit by a whole bunch of cars throughout the course of this film.
Yeah, I mean,
I was just
this
amazed
is
that
literally getting
all
his
of
ass
these
fucking
assassins
just destroyed.
could evade the traffic. And I've been, I don't know if any of you have also been to the Arc de Triomphe. That means traffic is monstrous.
Just
You cannot cross. You have to go
Yeah.
underneath to get to the actual arch.
Art.
So I'm wondering, how do they manage to go through all that without getting really slaughtered on the road? I believe it's the Champs Elysees. I will say that I like the use. When they play Nowhere to Run. I mean, that is clever.
Mhm.
And then they have the painted black in French,
Yeah.
which is also clever.
Yeah.
And
The-
think it was.
I
clever
think
at
it was.
all.
I thought it was. Well, I thought it was.
choice.
No. Sorry, you're wrong. I thought it went
Painted
well.
black,
I
really?
thought-
Painted black? When you're chasing
Hey.
John Wick? Yeah, that's not on the nose. Come
well,
on, dude.
Again, I thought it worked well. I thought it blended well. I got the reason they were playing Nowhere to Run. I wish they would have played the original. Was it the Martha and the Vandellas version? But that's just me being.
The radio
Probably too
chick was
expensive.
a call out to the movie The Warriors.
Yep.
That whole sequence where she's
Yeah.
giving hidden messages or
Oh, yeah.
coded messages to the assassins
Well,
throughout
I mean,
Paris.
it wasn't even that much hidden. I mean, she was kind of pretty much on the nose with everything she was saying. It's
Well,
like,
No,
yeah,
yeah,
well,
and then
she
the wicked
said
man
that when
is
they
like,
went into
really?
the sacred, they invaded our sacred heart. Obviously, that's a shout out to the Sacre Coeur
That
Cathedral.
was used in the end
So,
credit. Yeah.
so it works. And I rolled with it. I understood what they were going for. And I did wonder though, like when they were almost at the top, that they fell back down and pushed it down, going, really? Do
Oh.
they have to
But
go
see,
back up
and the
again?
issues that Jacob, because they are like, if you look at the plot and you examine it, there are issues where it's just like, okay, we get it. This is like the fourth movie, and how many assassins can like, are we not going to learn our lesson? I just leave that at the door because the movie itself was so entertaining, and I kind of accept the premise.
Well,
You know what
think
I mean?
about it.
Like,
At this
exactly.
point,
It's rare
near
that
the
that
end,
happens.
$40 million. Who isn't going to turn that down?
well, it's not that they did turn it down. It's just like, well, yeah, it's $40 million because we've been trying to kill this guy for 4 movies, and he's murdered every single person who's attempted to kill him up to this point.
I mean, it went
At a
from
certain
14,
point, it has to be
20,
like, maybe we should think twice before just jumping at the money, because clearly jumping at the money is the smartest idea.
It's the money
The
and the
tracker,
glory.
by the way, I do love. It's like the tracker, or the guy calls the tracker, and he's like, 35. Okay, what? That's not what we agree. You're paying for what you're getting, and I love how he fucks over the marquee. He's like, oh, 35. Okay, 40. Yep,
Here's
gotcha.
my problem with the tracker. The guy who plays Mr. Nobody, I think it's
Yeah.
Shamir Anderson is the guy's name.
Yep.
My problem with his character is that he really doesn't play that big of an important role, like in the film, like whatsoever. It's like there's this whole scene with like the dog, and really the dog gets over more towards the end, which we'll get to here in a second. But as far as like his character, he's introduced during the Japan scene where he checks into the hotel and he's kind of just there as everything like crazy is going on. It's later implied that he's looking for John Wick because I guess in his mind, $40 million is the amount of money that he needs in order to live life the way that he wants to live it. So they were kind of building up this whole angle where no one's offering me the money that I want to kill you yet, but the second that they do, you're gonna be mine. And then you're thinking that this is gonna lead up to something towards the end of the film, and then they just kind of abandoned it to the point where he's just basically just a spectator for the rest of the movie. And I think if you had just cut out his character entirely, it probably would have been much better filmed. Keep in mind,
you need a character
They
with a
needed
dog.
him, though. In a sense, they actually needed him because what happens when the reason why he turns on the marquee, where he goes loyal to Wick, where Wick saves his dog, that's actually quite symbolic throughout, or because he's ready to kill him. He has him dead to rights.
well, I mean, yeah, it was a
But
clear
then he
cut
feels that the
to.
dog, this is a dog that I can save in placement of the one I couldn't.
Yeah, it was a clear cut callback to the first film, which is what started this whole thing in the first place. And I thought it was clever the way that was done, but the way that his character was introduced, like I said, it's more about the dog than it is about him.
Yeah.
Well, but you needed the
because-
dog somewhere. You needed that dog.
Mhm.
Well, also, I wish they would have brought Halle Berry. They could have brought Halle Berry back for this one.
No, she was the one that stayed from the third movie, and she shouldn't have been involved in the first place because
Well-
hey, I'm gonna pop in and then pop out. But it was I'm sorry, but that was such a clear okay, we need to give you a job here.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because there was a number of people from past John Wick movies who didn't make a return here for this one. You have kind of the girlfriend from the first one, Halle Berry, obviously. Common was a character in the second film who actually survived, but no, even though he got left with a knife in the chest, he did survive, so he didn't come back. There was a lot of characters you could have brought up to kind of, I guess, wrap up this whole storyline in a bow, and they didn't decide to do that. So it's like they went with Sasgard, and then they brought in Donnie Yen, who's also in the movie. And I love
this character.
So I wanted to talk about this because maybe this is just me watching too many superhero movies over the last few years, but it didn't seem like there was a number of characters in this movie that were influenced by the kind of the superhero movies, specifically in Marvel. You had Donnie Yen, who was kind of doing his best Daredevil impression. I did like the fact how early in the film they kind of set it up to where he uses kind of the elements to his advantage because he is blind, so he sets up traps that people fall for. It makes it easier for him to find them and to kill him, but then they kind of just abandoned that altogether after that one scene, which didn't really make too much sense. You had
he was in tight quarters, and when he's out and about, he understands he can't really use those methods.
Yeah, and then you had the Russian dude who just kept saying his name. I kept thinking to myself, is this supposed to be a parody on Groot?
I am Klaus.
Yeah, I am
Klaus. I had the same thoughts about both of them. I actually wrote my notes, the Japanese Daredevil. And I also wrote I am Klaus equals I am Groot. So I got the same feeling.
And then, of course, hold on a second. Yeah, the German head of the table, which is the character that we all loved. Scott Adkins played this character called Killa, and I don't know if they were going for maybe a penguin type character or if they were going for Kingpin, but he started to be a kind of a mix of both throughout that one. So I was like, there's clearly characters in this movie that are inspired by other characters from other sources. So, like I said, there's a lot of callbacks in this film to other forms of other movies, stuff like that. I noticed that too in a lot of these characters.
That fat suit, Scott Adkins in a fat suit doing martial arts. I'm okay. I get that Scott Adkins is very skilled. Why did they need to make this dude fat? Why? I mean, don't get me wrong.
That's what I said when he started fighting. I was like, oh, okay, are you doing a Kingpin thing with him? Because that's kind of the play on Kingpin. He looks like this big giant fat guy, but he can't fight.
This dude is extremely lethal, even though he's fucking fat.
Yeah,
but how many of us have seen the Harry Potter movies?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a few of
them. The woman who is part of the Ruskarama, the head of the Ruskarama that brings him back in, that's Tonks from the Harry Potter films.
That's who?
That's Tonks.
Oh,
Remus
I don't even know
Lupin's
who that
wife.
character is.
Oh,
the one that can change her hair color.
Yes, I know that
from the fourth movie.
Yes. But I mean, I don't...
yeah, she was also in Game of Thrones as well. But that whole thing too was bringing him back into the Ruskarama was also pretty cool. But the Scott Adkins thing, everybody knows what John Wick did to 3 men in a bar with a pencil. Imagine what he could do with a playing card.
Did you? I wanted to ask everybody. Did you notice the connection between the beginning where John Wick, where Winston goes to find John Wick and he's just punching that bag over and over and over again? Did you connect that to when he's beating the crap out of Scott Adkins' character? He's punching him over and over and over. It's the same exact sound. I was like, oh, that's the beginning. Sorry, I just love connecting those two things. But Scott Adkins in this movie is having the most fun out of anybody else, and and a lot of people are having fun in this movie. But man, the way he hams it up, the performance he gives is fantastic. The gold-plated teeth that get, I believe, one at least gets ripped out by John Wick.
That would be the death.
It's great. So.
No, yeah, it's I really enjoyed it. I mean, again, it's in the spirit that the film is made in. This is a film that really is made for the fans of this franchise, and it really gave them a lot. I think it gave them a lot of what they wanted. Maybe not everything, but there were things that I, as a non-fan, really enjoyed. Like one of my favorite scenes is actually a surprisingly non-violent scene. It's the one where uh, Winston presents the Marquis with the dual challenge,
Yep.
and I appreciated the fact that those two paintings, they focus specifically on those two paintings. Was it Liberty Leading the People and the Raft of the Medusa? They are there for a purpose. That's
Subtle
subconsciously telling you,
symbolism.
yeah, it's telling you about the story without it like flashing in front of you. You draw that idea already from that. This is something that I have not said in a long time about an action film. This is an intelligent action film because it trusts your audience. It trusts your audience to understand. I mean, obviously, I'm a slight disadvantage having seen any of them, but it still gives you what you want. It gives you great visuals, and it gives you an intelligent little bits here and there.
And I would
Not to
say
mention,
I will agree with Jacob that I think a lot of the supporting characters do feel a bit ham-fisted, thrown in there, a bit of an afterthought.
But
And
hey,
I
at least
think
this
that it
chick wasn't
being,
back, so there's that.
I think the
which
fourth
one
movie
was
though,
she though in John Wick 3? Which
She
one
was
was?
the
Oh,
God.
the adjudicator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that thing.
but being the fourth movie, we already know there's going to be a spin-off with Anna de Armas.
Yeah.
I almost feel
It
like
takes
it's
place
trying.
between 3 and 4.
Any of these supporting characters are hits with audiences. I almost feel like this is the lazy like audience notes portion of this movie where it's like, oh hey, well maybe this character will hit with audiences and they can get a spin-off or something. Because they're already talking about a TV show. They're talking about
Well, the
sorry,
Continental
the
was,
Anna de Armas spin-off. So I
those
I don't
were
know.
We'll
Do you
just say
already
feel like
say
that's
save
what
this
established.
that
talk
is?
because we're gonna be coming back to it towards the
Yeah.
end. Because
But
we'll
I
talk
did
about
want
all
to
the
say
three.
one more thing on the Japanese Continental, and the person that they had playing, the actor that they have playing Koji, Hiroyuki Sanada, is one of the top most actors in Japan. When
Yeah.
you have any sort of Japanese role that you want a high stationed actor, you go to him. Not to mention every freaking movie I have seen him in that is fitting for the role, he is using he's using a damn sword because he also has a background in samurai studies and also swordplay, which
Yeah,
is
I wanted
Did
to
great.
anyone
say
like the lesbian pop singer that played his daughter? Was anyone cared about her?
well no,
She
I was
was
gonna
good.
say
I
I
didn't
think he was very
She
good.
showed
Um,
dedication in her fight choreography. I'll give her that.
what is that up?
But I'm so sorry. The Japanese actor you were just talking about, I thought he was very very good.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that you're only given a little bit of time with him, but his story is actually heartfelt, and so when he dies, you actually feel that impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm somebody that constantly complains about characters that show up and they have no resonance in the story or whatever, but that's not the case here. I actually felt like we got his story and it mattered to what had transpired.
There's a lot of fondness for daughters in this film because you've got Kane's daughter. She's the motivating factor for him. You've got the the Japanese, also his daughter, who might be coming back. I mean, his daughters are big in this franchise.
Those or I'm pretty sure that the stinger that we have during the credits is it's very clear what's going to happen. I mean, one of the things I mean that they did right with Donnie Yen's character is he is blind, but they do not make him Daredevil blind where he is super powered and all that shit because of it. He actually, or the people who are fighting him know what to do when they're fighting him. John Wick knows in certain areas, be the fuck still. Do not cause any sort of movement. I mean, I love how they did this smart with him. Plus, Donnie Yen being blind is another callback to him being in Rogue One. from Star Wars. Or
Well, it's not
Disney.
just Rogue One. I mean, I think Donnie Yen has been blind in at least 3 of the last few movies that he's been in, because there was definitely another one he was blind in as well. So I don't know if he's being typecast in being the next blind Asian samurai, but it seems like
Careful, they'll
he's going
come
that
after
way.
you for representation,
Oh
crimes.
yeah, right, because he's not really blind. He's taking roles away from real blind actors.
Exactly. I mean, it's just so fucking horrible.
Look, the thing that sells this film and the reason why so many people love it, and it's the best part about this movie, is like there's only a handful of set pieces in the films. Obviously, with each act, it's its own big set piece. But what they do with their set pieces is just absolutely beautifully shot. It's beautifully lit. It's the way everything looks amazing. The opening one when they were in Japan and they're going through the entire hotel, the lighting and all the setup there was great. You get towards like the second part of the film where there's a lot of odes to like the Matrix on here as well. Like especially if you watch like the first like 2 minutes, you think you're watching like the Matrix 5 or something like that. The way that Lawrence Fishburne comes in and he's starting his little speech and then he turns around, you just happen to see Keanu Reeves as well. Then you're at the little nightclub that kind of looks like, was it Zion from the Matrix as well, where everyone's kind of like dancing in euphoria while all the fights are going on like around them and stuff like that. And then of course you get to the ending part, which is the big one was the big circle, the on the street, and then you have the one with the stairs as well. Now I do have a problem with the stair scene, but I do like the one that everything is shot.
You mean where he kept going and it was like, come on.
Exactly.
Make it go down again? Yeah, no,
Exactly.
I had a problem with that too.
Yeah, it got to a point where it was like, okay, now this is just cartoon now. Like, this is what you guys basically like turn into. Like, guys, come on.
That was a little too much. It's like you got to the top, and is it some sort of weird ode to Sisyphus? Where
Yeah.
No, I said the same exact thing. Oh, got to carry it back up the hill.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you ever seen drunk guys falling off of stairs, but no one falls like that continuously. So, but like I said, the shots in the scene right before that, when they're in kind of that half renovated building, and he's moving around all the things, and then he's like shooting people with the shotgun with the dragon breath. So there's like fire being like blown into all the people. Like that would look like great. That looked amazing. I can't complain about any of that stuff. But the set pieces is what sells this movie. What was your best one for this film?
Yeah,
Well,
I probably would have to go with the, I don't want to steal it from anybody, but it'd probably be that, aerial view, God's eye view, almost like Taxi Driver-esque, look at him moving room to room and just unloading on people with the fiery shotgun blasts, and just that was awesome. Just seeing dudes be like fully immolated with fire, and just it was well choreographed, well shot, and a lot of fun.
I would say the overhead shot where it cuts once or twice to the ground level, but for the most part it stays and it just flows. The camera just flows from room to room almost seamlessly. You're getting an almost touch of evil like mastery there, to where you get to see so much, and you get to see the action. You get to see Wick blowing away people left, right, and center. Then you also get to see the tracker also pursuing Wick and is trying to blast his way out of the situation and not get killed himself. It's real strong filmmaking when you see that. Only once or twice do they cut back to where you see them on ground level. It's almost as if you needed that to give audiences a little moment to kind of breathe before you go back up. But the way the camera flows and the way it's all choreographed, I know a lot of people have been pushing for some sort of best stunt direction Oscar category. I'm still opposed to it, but I would have no objection to having like an honorary win for this kind of choreography. That was impressive, wildly impressive. That sequence is the one that I'm sticking with.
Choreography has actually been quite proficient in most movies, or ever since The Matrix came out, where Yuen Wu-ping and his fight crew doing fights and whatnot. Every movie that Keanu Reeves has been in that requires any sort of action they do focus on, and it's because of Keanu Reeves' actual insistence on it. They want to focus on choreography, and they do so in all of these movies. All of the choreography is done or you're training for scenes. you're doing it for months. You're not doing it for a few weeks. You're doing it for a couple months because they want to make sure that you have this stuff down, muscle memory. You're making it second nature. They want the audience to believe that these people know what they're doing and they're not just freaking doing it just to go through the motions. And they did a great job with that. Also, yes, the bird's or the God's eye view of the where he's using the dragon breath shotgun ammo is great because these guys actually were bringing it themselves. Or ballistically speaking, it's not definitely meant for armor piercing, but it is meant for shock. If you are being shot at with freaking fire, you're gonna freak the frick out. But it's also good at doing the damage too, as well. It's just basically insult to injury, and it is real shotgun ammo. That is an actual, or immolation rounds are actually a thing, which is pretty fun to use.
Obviously the fire is played up for a little bit more, let's just call it theatrical effect, but it plays up well for the film, so it's like I don't think anyone's gonna bother about that whole thing.
That's as realistic as it gets when you're shooting those rounds.
Yep. So let's go on to the ending here because, like I said, we mentioned it here with the stairs, and I was like, look, there was a lot that I was into, but then you just got to a point where it's like, okay, now this is bordering on silly. It's like John Wick is basically like a superhero in 1 minute, and then it's like a cartoon another minute. He can survive falls from God knows how long. He can literally drop the dude from space. He'll probably survive the fall, but like I said, then he gets Falcon kicked off the stairs where he just like rumbles and tones for about 200 yards, and then he expected, oh, well, I got to get back up the stairs. I only have 2 minutes to do it. It's like if you were walking like normally at your own pace, you probably couldn't make it up there in 2 minutes, and not let alone all the people you'd be fighting on the way up there. So it's like that you started to play a little too much with the boundaries of the film here. But then you get to the ending where we have a duel, because I guess we completely forgot about to tell you about the duel of this film. The only way that John Wick is going to come out is that he has to fight French Douche in a battle, but French Douche decides that he's going to have Johnny Yen be his substitute for this battle. So John Wick literally has a gun duel with a blind guy and almost loses. So that's
well, that only shows that he's actually, or that the blind dude is actually still quite skilled.
Yeah.
Although I will say that I mean, having been to Parkour, yeah, that's pretty steep to be climbing up there. And I'm sorry, but when I know there's a race against time to get there on time. I'm sorry. Get Me to the Church on Time was playing in my head as he was fighting there. That song was playing, and I thought, why don't they use that? Why don't they use a version of that? Because he needs to get to the church on time. Get me to the church on time. That's what he's going to.
I'm surprised they didn't just start playing Help from the Beatles while he was up there as well.
This is not a Richard Lester movie, okay? Jesus Christ, Pete.
Him getting kicked down, yes, that part was, it's like, oh my god, are you fucking serious? But I do like how they did recover it with Donnie Yen this time coming to help him with it. Plus, freaking dude with the tracker. I love that. Nuts! And the dog just freaking rips your nuts apart. It's just, I'm like, awesome.
But see, the reason this movie doesn't have a perfect score for me is a couple of reasons. I know we're not there quite yet, but that's one of them. But stuff like the dog going after the nuts instead of just attacking, is sort of like, okay, like going for the neck would be just as satisfying and gruesome, and it wouldn't be so comedically obvious. But I will say
it's not a pit bull.
Well, not only that, you also got to think about the safety issues.
Because I think he was like a German Shepherd, maybe. I'm not.
It is a German Shepherd. It is a younger German Shepherd.
It's essentially a police dog.
Yeah. But I will say this movie actually was genuinely funny throughout. I never felt like the violence was slapstick or it was overly jokey. I feel like the action was pretty brutal and like effective and well done, and the movie still found room to be funny from time to time, but other than these few moments at the end, I never felt like it was forced. Another thing, like I love the fact that like at least the cars run into Keanu Reeves. And this is before he falls down all those fucking steps too.
Yeah.
So it's just like I think at some point it's just like, hey, let's beat the shit out of him before the very.
I mean,
Go ahead.
definitely, but that's actually a scene that I come to appreciate, the Arc de Triomphe, because they had to shut down that circle to film that whole thing. Every car in that scene is a stunt driver.
Yep.
Every car is a hired person to do the whole sequence. To do that, to actually get the permission of the French government to actually do that, because you need. These are the things that, or Rob would understands this stuff too. I'm guessing because he's such a movie nerd. That these are the kind of things you got to do, think ahead of, to make these things work. You can't just ask, it's like, can we do this shot here? No, you got to do so many negotiations with so many different people when you're shooting in so many different places.
That's
And
not
they,
true. Tom Cruise blew up a bridge without permission. So
That's why
I'm
old
pretty
movies,
sure he got like 50 lashes from his Scientology friends because of that.
But again, this is where
why.
Corey.
I just want to say this real quick. Old movies are so impressive because it's like when they're filming people talking in a public place like that, it's like they had to coordinate and choreograph all of that. All those people are literally extras, in that given set or that scene, and we don't see that anymore. And it's something of a lost art, at least in most movies that are made now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say to kind of follow up on Orange Hat's comments. This is where the choreography comes in. This required exceptional planning and rehearsal and coordination between the cars, and then between all the individuals who were driving, and all the individuals who have to jump out of the cars or try to get run over and get hit. That takes a great deal of planning, coordination, and yes, I'll use choreography. That's why I said that it was almost balletic, the way that all these fights are set up. Even again, going back to the Berlin nightclub sequence, with that, with all these people dancing, that still requires a lot of planning and forethought and coordination between the extras who are supposed to be the club goers and those who are fighting there in the midst of them in the water. So that takes a lot of planning. I give them a lot of credit for that. It's well crafted. It's a well crafted series of fights and stunts.
Also, the Arc de Triomphe did also have its fair share of digital augmentation too, because that dog was not, or I do not think for a second that dog was jumping off of cars the way, or without blue screen.
You don't think that they would
screen.
actually let a dog get hit by a car, did they? First?
Exactly, because it's like there's no fucking way that dog got hit by a car.
No.
I mean, they threw
Come
a
down.
freaking puppet dog, and then that dog got up digitally.
So Triumph the insult comic dog at the Arc de Triomphe. That
Yeah.
would have worked. But I mean, you have to have some. I mean, it can't. Not everything can be done on camera. I mean, you do
Exactly.
need
I mean, John Wick jumping out a freaking window, that was pure freaking digital.
Yeah, you need some, but at least in this sense, those special effects are used in the service of the story, and they don't stick out as much as they have like in something like Ant-Man, where they were obviously green screen and were look really bad. The same with Shazam. And Rob's right. I mean, all of these other, like the MCU films and the DC films, they can certainly take lessons from how well they coordinated in something that was, quote, more realistic, even though John Wick himself is pretty indestructible. But again, you have to have some suspension of disbelief in order to have the plot go.
Well, I'm pretty sure the sky, at the very end, that's the sunrise, where they're doing the duel. I'm pretty sure that's CGI, but guess what? It's pretty good CGI. It looks beautiful. It looks nice to look at, and it's like, yeah, I can tell, but also it's a job well done.
You can
fits the scene.
You can tell, but it's in the service of the story, so
Yeah.
it's not it works quite well. I don't know if any of you had this in the theater, but at the end when the Marquis is about to have his coup de grace, and Winston stops him, the audience literally cheered in the theater I was in.
Mhm.
They cheered when he tells them, "You pompous, was it you pompous
You
has
pompous
he,
asshole.
he hasn't fired? Yeah,
Oh,
he hasn't fired."
mine did too.
Yeah.
Cheered and yeah.
Yeah, they cheered.
Oh
Yeah.
my god! You hear an audible gasp in the audience. There's like, and then it's like, and then he's like, "Oh
To be
my
fair,
god!"
I went to like a 5 p.m. screening, so nobody cheered at mine.
Yeah. I mean,
Mine was
that
I went- no,
whole
in the morning.
fucking thing. It's like he didn't
I
fire.
went to an 11 a.m. screening.
Yeah.
And
On like a weekday or weekend.
it was on a Friday. Yeah, I was off on Friday, so
Okay.
Right.
Well, look, final thoughts about this movie, and we'll go around. I will say this: this is certainly better than 3, which I had a lot more issues with. But I still have my issues with this one. But I will say this: I'm glad that at least it ended in a sense where it feels like that they're finally going to move away from at least this chapter of the John Wick's story. I think that they should just leave it here at that. And then look, if you want to do a 5 million spinoffs, good luck. But I think this was a story ending on a good note. All these movies have been pretty solid. Like I said, in my estimation, I'm pretty sure you guys can give your own theory. 2 is the best one for me. Then I go with 1. Then I go with this one, and then 3 is probably the least favorite of the I guess whatever you want to call it of the series. But yeah, there's still, you can't deny that there was a lot of work, a lot of effort. The way that they went to the fight choreography, the shots, the camera work. Like, this is a series, and these are filmmakers who, like I said, they know their audience, they know what their audience wants, and they actually want to deliver what their audience wants instead of subverting their expectations or trying to subvert the culture throughout, the cinema and say, okay, look, our guys just want to see people get killed. They just want to see shootouts and things blow up, and this is what we're going to give them. So for that, I got to give him praise for it. As far as this film goes, John Wick 4, I give this one a 4 out of 5. So that's my rating for this film. Rob, what do you give this movie?
Yeah, I'm probably a little harder on it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I had a blast with this. I loved seeing this in IMAX. I had so much fun. Like, there's so many scenes that I just enjoyed and had my mouth. I was shocked. I laughed. It was the whole rigmarole of emotions that you want when you go to see a movie on the big screen. I can't recommend it anymore for movie-going audiences. Just some issues here and there. It is the 4th movie, and amazingly, I think it's probably the 2nd best one. I have not seen John Wick 2 since it came out, so I'll have to revisit that one. But I think the first one probably is the best, followed by this one, the second one, then the third one. I'm really hard on action movies. I think most of them are kind of dumb. Even the good ones are pretty stupid. Like the Mission Impossible movies, no matter how much I might like the stunts, I found the plot and the characters to be so fucking stupid. So I don't think that'll change much for me. But like, fact that I could suspend my disbelief, for the plot and just enjoy the action, the choreography, the all the different characters and like where they come from and their backstories and just the whole landscape of the movie. It was just really easy to fall into. So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, and just had a really good time with it.
Well, we'll go with Orange Hat since Rick doesn't know how to make his.
No, I know. How dare you? I'm being scolded for never muting myself. But go ahead, Orange Hat.
I agree with Jake's score. It's about an 8 out of 10 because I always go out of 10, and 4 out of 5 is 8 out of 10. But the digital effects are where the movie suffers, because that's what I also did with 3. The movie, or John Wick 3, also, they should touch up their digital effects a little bit better. However, there is also a limit to what any person can really take. And the fact that John Wick went through so much freaking fun, especially in this one. Yes, the kick down the stairs right at when he was getting up to the top, that does it's like, okay, that is, you're pushing your bounds a little bit to the point where you're taking it out of the realm of even possible suspension of disbelief. But also, I do believe that this movie did a good job at fulfilling the story that was meant to be told. And we're going to, after this, we're talking about the future of it, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll hold off on those. But yes, for the most part, this movie was good with expanding the lore even further. The movie was good at telling telling a story that made sense for the most part. And I really did enjoy it. It really is a movie that is worth investing in the future when it comes out.
For me, I'm probably going to be closer to Rob's grading. I would give it a 3.5 out of 5
Disgusting.
because one of the, well, I mean, length is always an issue for me. But this is a curious thing, though it's a very long movie. I'm hard pressed to find what exactly I would cut. Maybe some of the opening with the elder, maybe the staircase at the soccer court, maybe not have him come down twice. Once would have been enough.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I was really impressed with the score, with the cinematography and the production design. This is a beautiful looking film, and I don't know how the others were in terms of violence. I was not particularly shocked or horrified by the violence in this movie. I guess I was expecting much more. As my pastor said, it was murder porn. When he finally explained why. I mean, he says he
I
liked
mean, he's
them,
not
but
wrong, but I mean,
yeah, he says he likes them, but they're also murder porn, in a very strange, convoluted reply that he gave me. But on the whole, I was really impressed. This movie does give the fans what it wants, which is a lot of action, a lot of great set pieces. We don't really talk. I don't think we've talked as much about how great Ian McShane is. I think he is the MVP for this film, because I loved his kind of droll deliveries of the lines, the way he's able to cut people down, and even add a little bit of humor without being too cartoony or over the top. This is a well performed film in that everyone knew their role and they didn't try to really go too far. Maybe Bill Skarsgård was over the top, but I kind of rolled with it because I always thought he was. So this is a very impressive movie for me. This really is, without too much hyperbole, the best movie I have seen all year. And I, as someone who's not seen any of the other John Wick movies, I'm almost tempted to see them, though it's not a great temptation. I certainly would prefer this over any of the Mission Impossible films, and I will not be watching the new one. I will not be watching the new one under any circumstance, because I've only seen the first one, and I'm not going to watch them.
then why are you on the show then? Like, what
It's a pretty big release to just skip over. You know what I
No,
mean?
no,
Yeah,
no,
right?
no. I'm just stating that out there before, so it won't be.
Rick, I'm just gonna make a guarantee right now. That's gonna be the next big box office hit compared to John Wick 4. Is the
probably,
Mission Impossible movie.
but I'm still not watching it. But on the whole, this is really the best movie I've seen all year. Out of all the movies all movies that we've reviewed for this year, this one is at number one. And I'm sure there'll be others that will maybe dislodge it, but I would not be surprised if this were in my top 10, if not top 5.
Yeah, I think one thing about this year is that at least starting off like the first 3 months, it's been pretty balanced as far as I say. Because there's obviously been films that have been absolutely horrible, but there has been some pretty solid films so far this year too. Like I said, for the first 3 months, which is the first third of the year, it hasn't been too bad so far. So it's nowhere near like 2020 where we were like, oh my god, can I even put 10 movies together for a top of best stuff list right now? Because I was struggling. There were some movies on my top 10 for 2020 that were like 3.5 out of 5 at best, which would have never made any other list if it was actually a good year. So that was a rough year, but we haven't had nearly that bad. And then I always keep going back to 2019. I think to myself, damn, 2019 was such a great year for films. Like, what the hell happened? But we just fell off a cliff post-COVID. Now, the discussion here that I want to have real quick before we wrap things up is the future of the John Wick franchise, because essentially, they're moving away from Keanu Reeves, at least for the time being, and they're focusing on the spin-offs. So you're going to get a whole bunch of John Wick spin-off movies, a whole bunch of movies that happen within the John Wick universe here. You're going to have the Ana de Armas film, Ballerina, which I believe comes out sometime next year. You're getting a series on, I believe, Paramount Plus, which is going to be focused on the hotel, or the Continental. That's going to be a series. They're also working on a couple of other spinoffs that they haven't given too much information for, but there will be other spinoff movies in the future. Do you like the idea that they're trying to keep this thing alive by saying, hey, look, we ran our course with Keanu Reeves, but here's 1,001 spinoffs that you guys are going to like too? Or are they trying to do too much? Should they just be like, hey, look, we gave you guys 4 pretty solid movies, let's just end it there? Well, what is kind of your thoughts of them trying to keep this money train alive? I'll start with Rob.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is Hollywood. Hollywood does. They find something that's successful and they try to repeat it as many times as they can until the public rejects it. So, as much as I want to say that it's like they should not do this, and they should, they are not going to be able to sustain the creativity associated with John Wick 4, much less the original John Wick, with any of these spinoffs. So it's like, why would you do that? And the answer is to make money. So they're going to milk it for all they can, and hopefully we'll get something good out of it, but I'm not going to hold my breath. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a good idea. This is where creativity goes to die, where you keep recycling the same idea to diminishing returns. So, it's probably not going to work out, but, like I said, hopefully we'll get something positive out of it.
Orange?
I think that, or because they've been planning the Continental for a while, the Ballerina was a more recent endeavor that they announced. The Continental is meant to be a prequel taking place in the 70s with Winston, or it's meant to be Winston's rise to the manager, because he's always been saying, I've been manager of the Continental for 40 years. So it's basically his ascension to manager. And there is a curiosity that I think that they could do well with it. It also does do a good way of showing the world not strictly from John Wick's point of view, so it is a good way to do lore expansion. They should hopefully, or I'm hoping that they aim to do it right. The Ballerina, which is said to take place between 3 and 4, because there's going to be a Wick cameo in it. They do run the risk of making, as you said, useless spin-offs. I mean, honestly, I thought they were setting up freaking the Tracker for a spin-off, because it's like, what other reason what was he in the film for, to be completely honest? I mean, it would make sense to have to create a Tracker spin-off, because this guy is basically like a bounty hunter kind of assassin. But they need to basically also take caution, because having too much of a good thing is also a good recipe for disaster. This being a concluding chapter to the Book of Wick is something that I feel is a good way to do, or is a good thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, I would say that I don't see anything wrong with having one spin-off, and if it's going to be a prequel TV show, because it would want to work its way into the overall John Wick mythos. I just hope that that they don't go the MCU route where they're going to bleed everything dry. We had the movies, and then they decided to make almost all the characters have their own TV shows, and then they're splitting it into minor characters. they better not. I think if they're going to do this, stick to the Continental TV show and tie it in. If they want to have a ballerina spin-off, as I've said before, yeah, that's fine. I don't think it's going to be harmful. But if they're going to have like uh, Marquee, the miniseries, then we're going to slip into major issues here. You don't need to fill in everything. Leave some
Right.
mystery. Leave some mystery for this franchise. One or two, a prequel TV show, one spin-off. I think that's more than enough. There's only so much that John Wick fans would really want. They want John Wick. They don't really want all of these characters. One or two is fine, and I understand. You could get money out of it, but limit yourselves. Don't go the MCU route to where you have to have a spin-off for the dog, like the puppy years. All right, this is not Clifford. You'll be fine.
Well, I just want to say this real quick. Like the first John Wick movie, when I saw it, I almost like kicked myself because it was almost like somebody made a good adaptation of Max Payne, the video game, which
Yeah.
incorporates a lot of like John Woo action, like what's called bullet time, which of course we know better probably through the Matrix. This, the character slowing down to like dodge bullets and like shoot where time is slowed down and all that. Like, so I've been loving all of the John Wick movies because it's almost like somebody made a similar type of story and has made it, and obviously now it's like global. The fourth John Wick movie, he goes to multiple countries. It's almost worldwide. So, video game adaptations never work out. It seems, not even The Last of Us. So it is what it is. I'm glad John Wick's been successful. I've pretty much enjoyed them all, but the third one was kind of getting stale there. So I'm glad they kind of came back with a bang for the fourth one.
Well, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a choice here because I'm kind of confused on what we should do next week. Here's the choice that I have for you. I can assign you guys movies that you're probably not gonna like because there's a bunch of movies coming out this week, but none of them are any good. So I can do that for you. I can waste your guys' time, or we could say, screw it, let's do another movie night next Monday night and spin our wheels. So what would you guys prefer?
You guys don't want to see the Dungeons and Dragons movie? What's wrong with you?
Not particularly.
No.
Even with the glowing reviews and Captain
Yeah.
Kirk and
No.
the guy from Bridgerton
No.
Not really.
and Hugh Grant Surly again. Come on.
Well, I don't know why you're celebrating because I was gonna make you watch Spitting Gold. So
Which one?
it's a movie called Spitting Gold. And I don't know, there's something about the old days of Hollywood music, but yeah, it didn't seem very interesting. So I figured I'd just give that one to you.
Well,
So I figured that you guys would rather do the movie night instead, right?
yeah.
Probably.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and figure out what movie we're going to be watching next week. I go ahead and just update you guys on what exactly is on the wheel here because I know it's been a little bit since we've been here. But we have The People from Under the Stairs. We have Twister. We have the original House Party, 1990. We have Cobra. That one should have been taken off. I thought we had taken Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, off. I'm just going to scratch that one off now. We got Street Fighter, we got The Craft, Evasion USA, Blue Streak, and Tremors. So, are you guys ready to see what we got coming up this week?
Yeah, bring it on.
All
I think
right,
the only
then.
one I haven't seen is Invasion USA.
There's quite a few I haven't seen.
Oh no, please not Twister. Please, thank God.
Oh.
Okay, House Party. I just saw House Party, but that's fine.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, do you want to just spin it again? I don't want another sweat raw for a movie that he's already seen. You know what? Let's do this again. That way we can give another shot for Twister to hit on our spin. So we're going to respin. That spin didn't happen. We're doing it again. So parts take two.
$1.
Twister, 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 Twister.
Fucking A,
Yeah.
dude.
No! Son of a bitch! All right, then. I guess we'll watch Cobra next Monday night here on the show.
Oh
So.
god, I haven't seen that movie.
I'm sure Cassie will join for that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got
I
so
haven't seen-
lucky on that one. So
I haven't seen Cobra in like 30 years.
You tempted fate and you won, Rob. Congratulations.
Well, Twister's like the fact that people earnestly say that Twister's a good movie or they enjoy it when it's like, I'm sorry, there's an old Opie and Anthony episode that they just absolutely trash that movie that I love. So it's probably what it is. And Patrice O'Neal's
Philip
on that
Seymour
one.
Hoffman's in it. Shut up.
Well,
No,
they-
that's what's so embarrassing. Philip Seymour Hoffman is in it, and he earnestly plays his role as like the frat guy he's a storm chaser, man, and it's just so fucking
Well,
embarrassing.
aren't they working on a remake or a sequel?
Yes,
The sequel.
Sister Twisters. I don't know.
Yes, one or the other. I can't remember if it's a
Twister, I
remake
don't
or a sequel.
Sequel.
The sequel? Why? I mean, I'm with Rob on this. I
Yeah,
don't.
they don't need to
Paxton's
make a
dead.
continuation.
Move on.
I don't
They
understand.
basically already did with frickin' Into the Storm.
I never got the love that this movie received from people. I saw it and I'm thinking this is stupid. But
Mass destruction movies people love, I guess. I don't know.
all I'm gonna say about Twister is that I saw Twister while I was on a flight from Atlanta to Las Vegas. It was about 10 o'clock at night. I was in the air and I was watching Twister in the dark during turbulence. So you haven't lived until you've experienced that.
There you go.
Yeah, so some people pay for 4DX, and I bought a ticket on Delta, so there you go. So let's go ahead and wrap this up and tell you guys what you guys coming up. So, Orange Hat, we're going to start with you. You joined us for our special show tonight. What you got coming up, buddy?
Well, tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, I'm switching my mystery reviews now to 1:30 instead of 2:30. I'm going to be doing the final March mystery review, which is either green or Irish themed. The hint is it's my favorite MCU movie, as well as Bronx and Harlem, or Brazil and Harlem. It's pretty obvious at this point, but I also do guest choice reviews where if a person wants to come onto my channel, they get to pick the time, the date, and the movie, and we just go onto my channel. It's a movie that we both enjoy. We get to talk about it, discuss it, have fun, and just it's a good positive environment. I do other movie reviews, small ones here and there. I wish my John Wick 4 freaking review would have gotten a little bit more love, but that's underperforming. You win some, you lose some. I also am covering the Alec Baldwin stuff as it happens. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, then. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to our good buddy, Rob Motto. Rob, what you got coming up, buddy?
Yeah, so I don't know what I have coming up specifically, but there's my Twitter, and I pretty much talk about movies all day long on Wednesdays and basically Wednesday through Sunday. I pretty much watch movies, so you can check out what I'm watching there. I had more to say and just completely spent right now, so
Are you still employed?
I'm trying to
How's
watch
that whole thing going?
Well, I was gonna say I'm trying to watch some baseball movies as opening day comes up, but I'm sorry. What was your question?
I said, are you still employed? How's that whole thing going?
Oh yeah, no, I'm still employed. My boss came back today from being on vacation, and I didn't hear anything negative, so I'm good until I'm not. So I'll keep you appointed to what's going on.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's just I think I'm
Oh,
fine, actually.
real quick before I jump off to you, I know you just recently watched Molly's Game. Did you agree with my assessment that the ending was very, very dumb and ruined the movie?
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of out before them because Aaron Sorkin kind of gets on my nerves with his writing style, and even the beginning when Jessica Chastain was complaining about the worst thing can happen in sports, and basically it happened to her. It's like, all right, so this movie's not even 5 minutes old, and you're already whining and complaining about your lot in life. Okay, I already hate you. So, but no, I mean,
Jessica
I get
Chastain. That might be the least insufferable movie she's done in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And so yeah, it wasn't a bad movie. It just the character kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and it's Sorkin. But I did want to say real quick, Martin Scorsese's new movie has a release date of October 6th, so I'm really looking forward to that. That's Killers of the Flower Moon. So
All right. And speaking of things that just got a release date, Rick, did you know that the MCU has announced that Secret Invasion is getting a Disney release date for this June? So you'll get to watch your latest episode of the longest running cinematic soap opera ever. And
Is this on Disney Plus? Because I don't have Disney Plus.
yep, it's on Disney Plus.
Oh well, if you pay for my subscription, I'd be happy to see it.
Absolutely not.
Oh come on, I still have Peacock. So what I've got coming up is more reviews. I finally am getting my reviews started. I'm on a better schedule now, and I will review a baseball-related film for opening day. I'm definitely looking forward to baseball season starting up again. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just reviews and just catching up on movies that I've seen. So hopefully you'll see a review soon of Body Heat. You'll see more reviews of the movies that we've seen and talked about in the past few weeks. And yep, just catching up with that and just waiting for more scandals to pop up so that we can discuss them.
I'm pretty sure there'll be no shortage of scandals, especially in the industry that we love so much. So you probably don't have to worry about that anytime soon. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over here to let you guys know what we got coming up. Tomorrow night is obviously the Ballroom Podcast. Episode 41 is tomorrow. We're going to talk all about the Jonathan Majors situation. I guess he officially got arraigned today. Is his career done? Will Disney stick with him, or is this the death nail in the MCU? We'll talk about all of that tomorrow. Former Disney star Alex Penavega talked about coming out as pro-life and actually went as far to help one of her fans not get an abortion. We'll talk about that story tomorrow. Holly Holm got a lot of crap over this weekend because she dared, after winning her fight, said that we need to stop sexualizing children, and people had the audacity to get mad at her, saying that, well, the trans community are not a threat to kids. And of course, we all know what happened earlier today, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. Ghostbusters has officially added 2 actors that nobody likes, so is the film dead on arrival? We'll talk about that. And then we'll also talk about the showrunner for Wizards of Waverly Place, a 60-year-old man, talking about how he wanted to have a lesbian relationship in a Disney show that was aimed at teenagers with 2 14-year-old girls, and maybe that's something that we should give a little bit more context to, because I think that may be a little weird, a little sus, as the kids will say. That's all coming up tomorrow. Wednesday, I know we have the Black Pill stream on Bounding in the Comics. I think Sporking is going to be on the show this Wednesday. I haven't 100% confirmed that, but I think he will be there. And then next week, here on Twitch. So follow us on Twitch, and we're going to try it out on Rumble too. So if Rumble gets taken down, hey, it is what it is. But we're going to go ahead and go live on a movie night next week. We'll be watching Cobra, not Twister. So Cobra, 1984 film. We'll be watching that one next week. So Rob, you got off lucky, you son of a bitch. And then, and then outside of that, just follow me on the website, societyreviews.com. I'm pretty backlogged on reviews right now. I think there's still about 3 reviews that I have to do. And then, of course, I still have the 1-minute reviews on YouTube as well. So just follow me on all the social media accounts. If you guys are watching us here on YouTube, Rumble, or Twitch, you'll have all the accounts. So we got something coming up there. It's just going to take us a little bit of time. And hey, we just passed 800 subscribers on YouTube as well. So that's something to celebrate too. So we're putting in the work. We're putting in the time. So it will get there sooner rather than later. But I'm tired. We're going to go ahead and wrap this show up and get everyone the hell out of here. We will see you guys tomorrow night on the Barroom Podcast at Hitting Spring Yard. To everyone who joined us tonight, before a quick shout out before I just completely run out of here, Duke Dukem, Doba Fett, who joined us here tonight, That Sexy Golf Girl, Zombie Box Reviews, Alex vs. Evil, Zero Dozer. Thanks for joining us all here on a Monday night. Monkey Jeebus, I don't know if I want to give him any shout out, but he was here too, I guess. So until then, we'll see you guys tomorrow for the Barroom Podcast. Good night. Adios. Later on.